By the third year of World War I, infantrymen were stuck in a brutal, immobile stalemate. Their long bolt-action rifles and bayonets were highly effective across open fields, but nearly useless for fighting inside the tight, zigzagging scars of the European trench networks. An American Army ordnance officer named John T. Thompson saw the need for a completely different kind of weapon. He envisioned a handheld rapid-fire tool chambered in pistol ammunition that could clear confined spaces, a weapon he literally called a trench broom. His engineering team successfully developed a prototype by the fall of 1918, but the timing was a disaster. The first shipment of his new submachine guns arrived in New York Harbor on November 11th. Armistice Day. The fighting in Europe was over. Stranded without a military conflict, Auto Ordnance had an aggressive close-quarters combat weapon with nowhere to go. They had no choice but to pivot to the civilian market, unwittingly setting the gun up for one of the most infamous second acts in history. Throughout the 1920s, the Thompson Submachine Gun found buyers wherever violence was local. It was adopted by Marines fighting the Banana Wars and postal inspectors guarding mail trains. But it became a cultural icon in the hands of Prohibition-era gangsters and the police departments trying to outgun them. During this interwar period, the Thompson was manufactured like a premium luxury item. Each receiver was meticulously milled from a solid forging of steel. The internals utilized expensive bronze components, and the wood furniture required precise, labor-intensive hand-fitting by highly skilled craftsmen. That level of physical craftsmanship carried an exorbitant price tag. A single unit cost the government $225, roughly $3,000 today. That was more than an average American factory worker earned in an entire year. Then came Pearl Harbor. The United States entered a global conflict and suddenly needed to arm rapidly expanding ranks of paratroopers, vehicle crews, and infantrymen. The military ordered Thompsons by the tens of thousands, immediately exposing the fatal flaw in the production line. It simply took too long to build. The meticulous quality that defined the 1920s, Thompson had become a massive industrial bottleneck. The Allied war machine didn't need a few perfectly crafted firearms. It needed absolute maximum volume. To survive the war, the Tommy gun had to be gutted. Facing staggering demand, engineers at Savage Arms and Auto Ordnance began hunting for any manufacturing shortcut that could shave hours off the machining process. They started on the outside. The intricate, finely machined cooling fins on the barrel were scrapped. The weapon fired an open bolt system with a thick barrel, cooling efficiently enough on its own. The fins were just wasting valuable machine time. Next, they deleted the complex, fully adjustable Lyman rifle sight, swapping it for a piece of stamped sheet metal with a simple peephole bent into an L shape. They also abandoned the iconic heavy 50-round drum magazine. The drums were noisy, bulky, and prone to jamming in the mud. Instead, the military transitioned entirely to robust 20 and 30-round straight-stick magazines. These external cuts served a dual purpose. They accelerated factory output to unprecedented levels, and they gave the frontline soldier a lighter, far more reliable tool for mobile combat. But the biggest cuts were still to come. Looking inside the receiver, the original Thompson relied on a complicated mechanism known as the blish lock. A brass wedge sliding against a steel receiver would adhere under extreme friction, safely delaying the bolt from opening while chamber pressure peaked. But engineers realized the slow-moving .45 CP cartridge generated extremely low pressure. That complicated brass wedge was entirely unnecessary. The mass of a heavy steel bolt alone was more than enough to absorb the recoil. So they threw the blish lock away, transitioning to a simple straight blowback system. They moved the charging handle to the side and machined a fixed firing pin directly into the bolt face. Look at the stark profile of the resulting weapon. By gutting the most complex parts of the weapon, the financial savings were massive. The unit cost plummeted by 80%, dropping from $225 down to just $43. Eliminating the internal mechanism proved a brutal truth of wartime economics: a good enough, straight blowback system was vastly superior to over-engineered perfection. Out in the gritty reality of the European theater, the stripped-down M1A1 excelled. Airborne units favored the weapon's rugged reliability and compact stopping power. Paratrooper Theodore Fina utilized the weapon's simple push-button stock detachment, removing the wooden stock entirely so the gun could be kept compact and accessible while jumping out of transport planes. Sergeant Richard Fisco, a lean scout for the 509th Parachute Infantry Battalion, carried his M1928A1 on deep, hazardous night patrols, directly behind German lines in Italy. Fisco modified his forward grip for a low-profile stance in the pitch black, no aiming down iron sights, just heavy, close-range fire. Stripping its luxury features didn't make the weapon less effective. It made it perfectly suited for the dirtiest, most chaotic jobs of the war. American manufacturing ultimately delivered nearly 1.5 million Thompsons to Allied forces, successfully transforming a boutique police weapon into a mass-produced military triumph. Yet the final chapter of the Tommy gun reveals a harsh, industrial irony. Even gutted down to its absolute bare essentials, the milled steel receiver of the N1A1 still consumed far too much valuable, high-grade steel and critical machine tool time. At $43, it was still too expensive. So the Ordnance Department replaced it with the M3 grease gun. It was an aesthetically crude tool, welded together from stamped sheet metal, and it cost exactly $20.94. The evolution of the Tommy gun is a master class in addition by subtraction. It stands as historical proof that when a nation has to arm a global fighting force, rugged simplicity and mass scalability will beat over-engineered perfection every single day.